Red Palmer.
The mayor of the airwaves is ready to go. Talking to people you wanna know.
Face to face.
One-on-one. Get the story and have some fun with
Red Palmer.
And now, the most trusted name in radio, Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves.
All right, we're live. It's 56 degrees up here in Stowe, Vermont. I've got my nice warm shirt on. You have a similar one. I presume it's much thinner, though.
Yeah, that's short sleeves. And it's cotton.
Long.
Cotton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, what do you call this stuff?
Flannel.
Yeah, flannel. Hey, got my flannel shirt on here now. Well, anyway, 56. What's the temperature down there?
It actually rained like crazy last night, and the temperature dropped. It's in the low 80s right now, and pretty nice.
Oh no,
very nice. Yeah,
I hate to hear that.
yeah. It'll get hot again. It'll get hot, but right now it's pleasant. Yeah.
When I got up here, it was 95 degrees the first day, and it was only 80 in Vero Beach. The last thing in the world you want to do. Hey, look, at my lips aren't working. There's a delay. Yeah, what's that?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Hey, say something, David.
Something, David. Say something,
No,
David. Yeah, mine's
yours is
working.
right?
Yeah, yours
Mine
does. Yours is coming in fine on this end. So
No, it's not, though. Look, when I say hello,
no, it sounds perfect, looks perfect, and when you put your finger up there, it does the same thing. Yeah. So, all right. Well,
Poland. Let's talk about Poland.
yeah. Well, the situation in Poland is rather precarious right now, and today we're going to cover quite a bit about the Wagner Group. We've all heard about the Wagner Group. It's this, paramilitary organization run by Prigozhin that is under Vladimir Putin and the Russians, and they tried to attack Moscow because Prigozhin was angry at the Russian military, and then they were redeployed. Oddly, Putin didn't crush the group and lock it in a cell somewhere. He has redeployed them to Belarus, which is the neighboring country on the border with Poland. And that by itself was a little bit odd, but what's happening just recently, a report came in from the Jerusalem Post a couple days ago that the Wagner Group fighters have been redeployed to a city called Grodno, which is in Poland. I mean, not in Poland, it's in Belarus, but it's right on the border of Poland. And in fact, it's only a short distance, like about an hour's drive by car from Grodno to the Suwalki Gap, or the Suwalki Corridor, as they call it. And this Suwalki Corridor is seen as a very strategic flashpoint in a potential war with Russia and Ukraine and Poland and NATO. The whole bunch, it could, bundle up and expand. The problem is it's inside of Poland, but it is also a territory, I've talked about this before, a territory that would connect the Kaliningrad enclave, which is this strategic enclave on the Baltic Sea that Russia owns and has the Baltic Sea fleet based at Kaliningrad. It could connect it directly to Belarus and thereby from Belarus into Russia. So it would be what you called a territorial land bridge. Now, the Wagner Group's being moved to this city of Grodno means it's within a short distance of being able to quickly attack with a convoy of trucks and take that Suwalki Gap area, which in one sense would be considered an invasion of Polish territory. And therefore it would possibly trigger a NATO response. But since it's Wagner Group invading instead of Russian troops invading, it would be questionable whether it was actually the Russians invading, and therefore would NATO be at war with Russia, or would NATO only be at war with Wagner Group? You see what I'm saying? That's the complexity. That's what I meant before. I've said this on a previous program. It's a gray area. Now, the details of this are important, Rhett, to understand, and for our audience to understand. The NATO is aware that this gap is a vulnerable area. They did exercises in 2016 called the Anaconda exercise, which was essentially on defending that gap against a Russian invasion. But under the expert opinion of RAND Corporation, which is a think tank connected very closely to the Defense Department, they said the Russians could overcome that corridor and then attack and overthrow all of the Baltic states within 3 days. Okay? So that corridor, besides connecting Kaliningrad to Belarus, it also connects Poland and the Baltic states. So if Russia were to occupy that corridor, it would block the Baltic states, and they couldn't get land support, military support from Poland, for example. That would make it very difficult for the Baltic states to defend themselves if they were attacked. So what I'm suggesting is possible is that the Wagner Group, by moving to this city, Grodno, they're positioning themselves to take that corridor area, but not under the claim that they are preparing to invade the Baltic states, which would clearly trip the NATO Article 5 tripwire. What they're going to do is claim that they're taking that area to allow for a land bridge to connect Russia with its territory, its enclave, Kaliningrad. That's going to be the argument. They're going to say, that's why we're doing it. And they've got a justification, and here's the justification. Lithuania, which is on the other side of that border of the Suwalki Gap, Lithuania banned the transit through Lithuania of any goods from Russia into Kaliningrad. So they basically, this was in June of 2022, they imposed a European Union sanction boycott. Now, the Russians got very upset on that, and they claimed this is a economic blockade. They said this is a provocative action. They said that Russia sees this move as openly hostile. And unless Lithuania lifts these restrictions, Russia reserves the right to defend its national interests. And it could be considered a casus belli, meaning a cause for war. So it's very possible that Russia could, and the Wagner Group could come in there and take that Suwalki Gap and say, we're only taking it so we can establish a land corridor to replace what Lithuania has done by its embargo or economic blockade of Russia. So they could argue that that's the reason why they're doing it. Now, embargoes and blockades have been known to start wars. The Japanese, for example, argued that their invasion, they attacked us at Pearl Harbor, but we had already had moves to block Japanese transit through the Suez Canal. And the Japanese claim
we were also treating them disrespectfully.
Well, the economic grounds of blocking their transit through the Suez Canal, that was seen as a very aggressive move. And
you're damn right.
And
you're not going to keep food from coming into my island. We're people we got to eat. That was very aggressive. That was, in a sense, that was an act of war itself.
Well, that's why I'm trying to explain. From the Russians' point of view, they might say that this blockade by Lithuania of this, outpost of theirs, this little island outpost of theirs, that was an aggressive act of war, and therefore they have the right not to start a war, but to claim this stretch of land. And
if you're threatening our country economically, or that our people will go hungry because of an act you've done, then you have raised our umbrage, and we are going to protect ourselves.
right. So that's why I think this is at least a possibility, and we need to watch this very closely. It would put the whole NATO situation into distress if some NATO members.
Stupid time to do this.
Well, not from Putin's point of view. It's not a stupid time. Putin is not doing
It's
well.
perfect for him.
Yeah, it's
It's
perfect.
perfect for him.
Yeah, and what he would find possibly by such a move, if he did it correctly, is he might split NATO, and some NATO members would say, "Oh, this is an act of war," and others would say, "No, it isn't." And then we have not a united declaration of war; we have a limited declaration of war, and NATO breaks up.
A house divided cannot stand.
Yeah.
That
So-
certainly weakens the position, but legitimately.
And this move also might be just intimidation to try to force Poland. Poland has been the strongest supporter of Ukraine, and Putin has been really aggressively trying to destabilize Poland's support for Ukraine. So this could be seen as a way to do that, drive a wedge where Poland would no longer be as strong a supporter of Ukraine as it is today. So it's a complicated puzzle. That's what, when you look at international diplomacy, there are lots of different factors that play into it. That gives you a little taste. I'm not going to go deeper. I'm not going to go deeper.
Why do they call it hybrid warfare?
Well, because Wagner Group is not technically part of the Russian military. That's why if Wagner Group does something, Wagner is the little green men. When you saw the green men on the Donbass that were allegedly taking over the Donbass, that was not Russian troops. Russia claimed no Russian troops involved here. Those are we don't know where those people came from. And remember that airline was shot down over eastern Donbass. The commercial American, not American, but a commercial airliner was shot down, and there was a lot of debate on who was responsible for that. And it turned out that those were Buk missiles, anti-aircraft missiles that had been shipped over from Russia, but they were in the Donbass, and they were being operated by little green men who mistakenly thought that was a military plane flying over. So the issue is that hybrid warfare is doing things that don't directly attribute to a nation state. That's part of it. Cyber warfare, if they're hacking your computers or hacking your power grid, can you really say it's the Russians that are doing it? How do you prove it? It's a gray area. Yeah.
I mean, we can't even, it's a wild world. A few years ago, Mr. B had opened up an email that he shouldn't have opened up, and it allowed who we think were the Russians to come in and freeze all our information.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What was I saying?
It's a wild world out there with hybrid warfare. Hybrid warfare,
and with Bitcoin and stuff. When we had to pay off thousands of dollars, in other words, I was really ticked off, and I said, I'm not going to budge. I'm not going to pay these sons of guns anything. And I said, well, Rhett, within a few months, by December, you're going to really be in regret, because it'll cost thousands of dollars to have all the ads revocalized, all this information gone. I just did an interview of a lifetime with the former photographer from Life magazine, and all these other famous interviews. They'd all be gone, frozen. So I decided to pay the money. But that's when we hadn't even heard the word Bitcoin back then. And that's when a guy in Vero Beach said he would charge us. I think he charged us like $500 or something, just to hand him thousands of dollars, and then he sent it in Bitcoin. Took a little advantage of the situation. It's just like these nerds that were charging, $5,000 for a web page.
Yeah. I
mean, now you can get a web page for $150, and also the apps. I ran into I have to say this, a Christian fellow in the mountains of Georgia a few years ago, up in near Amicalola Falls. and just north of Atlanta, and he said it would be $40,000 to create an app.
Yeah.
Well, we have an app right now, and because we pay a monthly fee to use the app, I think we got the app for free.
Yeah.
We didn't have to pay $40,000 for app. You have to be very careful. Just like online. See, this is one thing. I was thinking about you this morning. I wanted to send you something. It was some posting. You are really doing yourself a disservice because you like to travel around. You need to, you're being silly. You're cutting off your own nose to spite your own face. That this is your friend Rhett Palmer saying, go today.
I know. Get a smartphone. Yeah, I know.
Get an iPhone.
Yeah.
iPhone. I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal.
No, I don't want a deal.
If you don't, listen, if you don't love it within 6 months, I will buy the phone back from you.
The point is, it comes back to this whole issue of identity theft and what you mentioned. You got, wait a minute, Rhett, you were 5 minutes ago, you were talking about how you got hacked with your rather sophisticated knowledge.
Yeah.
You got hacked. Now, you don't think people are getting hacked all the time right now? They're being hacked. All of their data, by the way. The data on the telephones.
Nobody gets hacked through their phone.
Yes, they are. The data that is on the telephones is now being downloaded and shopped around by these big corporations like.
Okay, I'm gonna wager you a bet. If we live long enough, you're going to have a smartphone. You might as well start now.
Yeah, I don't think that'll. I think what you're going to find out. But that's a different topic.
Use it in a limited way.
All right, let's save that for another day. We'll have a discussion about data security.
I don't want to bother you.
We'll have a discussion about data security. I've looked into this very carefully, Rhett, and I know part of the hybrid warfare is the attacks on private biographic information, even medical information. That's being used. People in Russia and people in China are collecting all kinds of personal information on Americans, and they're using it to identify vulnerabilities so that they can target them for spying. That's exactly what they're doing.
You want to know something?
Yeah.
I tell you what, we're gonna put a monitor in your house just for a week, and we're gonna videotape you. And you know what you're gonna find out about your life? I hate to tell you this. Boring.
Okay, Rhett, the concept of spying is there are two different sides of it. I just want to sidetrack on this just a tiny bit. The two different sides of it are looking for agents of influence. You are a well-known speaker. You have influence in the community. If someone could get you to become persuaded to accept their views, especially some foreign government like Saudi Arabia or Russia or somebody like that.
David, I'm for sale, just like the president, like President Biden. I tell you, I'm up to $10 million now. You can have me completely.
Okay.
I'm yours, lucky you.
Okay.
I'm yours. I'll say anything you want me to. I'll even write a song.
All right. And then the other side, besides agents of influence, is what you called targeting people that have the ability to get in as U.S. citizens, the ability to get into U.S. intelligence jobs, and therefore provide inside information back to these people. This is basically what's called deep penetration operations. And I know about those things. As a Foreign Service officer, everybody that's in the Foreign Service is a target. The Russians, the Chinese, anybody would love to get a Foreign Service officer on their payroll, working as a deep cover spy for them. So that's an issue that we have to accept as a fact in the real world we live in, and that's not even hybrid warfare. That's just plain simple, flat out spying. So anyway, let's go on to the next topic. There's a lot about Wagner Group today, and also a lot about Africa. So I thought this would be an interesting, because we don't go into this issue of Africa very often.
What's going on here with the Russian-Africa summit that took place in St. Petersburg? Now, you've been to St. Petersburg as well as I have, right?
I did not. I've not been to Moscow. I haven't been to St. Petersburg. It's one of those.
I've been to St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you, it's who's the guy that it's named after there?
Peter the Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he really was great. You know how he ended up? This was a gentleman. And you know how he lost his life? A common citizen, regular person, fell into the iced waters in the winter. He jumped in to retrieve them, saving their life, and he got pneumonia and died.
Yeah. Well, Peter the Great was great, and he was attempting to bring Russia into Western European modality. Now, I want to point out for the audience, and I've said this before, Russia is not a Western European nation. Russia, from Moscow, was influenced from the time of the Mongol invasions of Genghis Khan, when they took over all of Russia. They set up the satrapy in Moscow, and these princes that were tied into the Mongols and developed this Oriental despotism, they were the ones who ruled the Muscovy Empire, Muscovy, from Moscow. On the other hand, the Ukrainians, they live in Kiev, in Rus. That is Rus. And the Russians took the name Rus from the Kievan Rus, but the Russians are not from Rus, and they are not Ukrainians. So that's why it's important to understand there's a big difference culturally. The Ukrainians never lived under the Asiatic hordes' domination. The Ukrainians lived independently. They were from Viking stock originally and Slavic, Southern Slavic stock. They were not from any Asiatic culture. That's why Vladimir Putin says, oh, we are a Eurasian country. Well, Vladimir Putin might be Eurasian if he came from Moscow or further east. If he was out there in the Ural Mountains, that was all territories dominated by the Genghis Khan and the Mongol horde. But and he's running that country, Russia, like it was the Mongol horde. In fact, he has told his confidant, the Minister of Defense, Mr. Shoigu, who is from Tuva, which is out in the Central Asian region. He has said to Mr. Shoigu that he would like to be another Genghis Khan. And Shoigu has built that up as a reputation. Vladimir Putin.
How do we know this?
That's what Shoigu has reported. I've got some information on it.
Why would he tell anybody?
Because they were bragging about it. It was basically, at that time, Putin was riding around bareback on horse out there with Shoigu.
I remember that.
And they were bragging about it. In fact,
maybe they were joking.
Well, I don't know. I think that the concept of Putin endorsing Eurasianism and saying that he would like to be a Genghis Khan, he thinks Genghis Khan was a great guy. I mean, Genghis Khan was a monster, but he was also an imperial master for the short time that he was ruling a quarter of the world. I mean, he was really a brutal dictator, a monster, but he was dominating the world for a period of time, and therefore that sounds.
Why do you think? You think it's has? Should we point the finger and say, is there something wrong in our makeup that there's this insane aggressiveness? It's just like these people in America, that males that have too much testosterone end up robbing banks and raping people and all kinds of stuff. I mean,
it's possible.
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's possible. Anyway, Putin had held this summit. You mentioned that earlier. Putin held this summit in St. Petersburg. This is called the Second Russia-Africa Summit. The first.
So he's trying to win them over as an ally.
He is trying, and I want to explain that he and the Wagner Group are doing a pretty good job of it at the moment. Yeah. The reality is, he at this summit, first of all, they cut off the Ukrainian grain. You've heard about that in the last few weeks. Russia has broken the continuation of this Ukrainian grain deal through the Black Sea. So what he's now saying to the Africans, because they get a lot of their grain from that area, he's saying, oh, well, I'll make up for all the grain that the Ukrainians can't ship you right now. We are having a record grain harvest, and we're ready to replace all the Ukrainian grain exports to Africa. Well, that means he'll make the money instead of the Ukrainians. That's part of his deal. It's what's called.
That's why he wants that territory.
Well, part of the reason. There are other reasons why he wants the territory. Why he's making the play towards Africa, that's the question you're asking. He also is looking for political influence. Besides a grain market for Russia, he's looking for political influence, and he claims that he wants he said this at the conference. He said the African leaders join forces with him to establish a new world order. A new world order. Yeah, you heard it. Yeah, that's what he said.
Used those words.
Yeah, he used those words, a new world order.
Quite scary. And I will say this: he is older. He's older than me. Putin is, and if he were to just live out his, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, there's a lot going on in my cranium as I listen to things. Well,
yeah,
why not just live in peace? You know, you've got $200 billion. You may be wealthier than Elon Musk. I don't know. Go enjoy yourself. But then with an ego, a massive ego like these politicians have, he figures, well, if I keep going on and all is peaceful, he's eventually going to get old, die, and he will hardly be remembered as a punctuation mark in history. Whereas, I hate to say it, but this guy is like, if he stirs up some stuff and accomplishes some semblance thing, his bravado, his ego, his hubris, what do you want to say, his arrogance will be fed the fact that now he will make history.
Well, he might make history, but more, I think he'll make history more like Adolf Hitler made history. Hitler is known for the wrong things. And I think...
Well, so was Stalin, right?
Yeah, and Stalin to some extent was, and he does admire, he admires Stalin.
Stalin was a monster.
He admires Stalin, that's true. But let me give you an explanation of his game plan for Russia, for Africa. That's important for you to understand. Russia is positioning itself as the successor to the USSR, the Soviet Union. This to me is a redux or replay of what the USSR was doing in Africa in the 1960s. I mentioned to Noah, because he's a young man, I said, if you live long enough, you can start to see the arch of history, the curve of history, and it comes back upon itself. And what you're seeing today is a new play for Africa, just like the Soviet Union did back in the 1960s. And what's happening, they're dusting off a lot of the old propaganda. They're saying, for example, that Russia is no colonial heritage. Remember colonialism. The British and the French and Portuguese were all over the place doing colonial powers. Russia is not a colonial power, and therefore no African country sees Russia as an enemy because they're not colonial, whereas France is colonial. Now, and a good example to open the window, get down to the microcosm level, looking at some individual countries. You've been hearing, probably if you've watched any of the news in the last month, about this struggle going on in Niger, Niger. Niger is north of Nigeria, and Niger is a fairly large country with lots of natural resources. It had an elected president starting in 2021, Mr. Bazoum. He was elected the first democratically elected president of that country since it became independent in 1960. So obviously that area of the world has had lots of political problems, and it hasn't established much of a reputation for democracy. It's poor and has a median age of 14 years old, so it's a real basket case. Anyway, it was under the patronage of France. Just in the last few months, this presidential guard, the chief of presidential guard, his name is Tichani, he overthrew Bazoum and put him into house arrest. So Bazoum is now under house arrest. Tichani, a military guy, is running the country with a coup. And they are burning the French flag, and they are flying the Russian flag, and they are inviting Wagner Group to come in and help them to stabilize the country. Now, that's the Wagner Group going on in Niger today. Right now, the discussion is that the French might organize a rescue group to try to rescue Bazoum and maybe overthrow this military coup. Not likely to happen. The French have been withdrawing from West Africa and not moving into West Africa. This is kind of the collapse of the last remnants of the colonial regime of France. Example, in Burkina Faso, which is a country right next to Niger. Burkina Faso, also French. You had a Captain Taureau seize power. This is another military coup in September of 2022. That was just last year. That was a military coup that took place in Burkina Faso. It brought in the Wagner Group, threw out the French, offered the Wagner Group a gold mine as payment. So you've got Wagner Group in Russia established in Burkina Faso. Mali, that's another country right next to Burkina Faso. It was taken over in August of 2020 by Colonel Gota. And in 2022, he expelled the French, and the French ambassador was tossed out. Mali has now 1,000 Wagner fighters present on the ground. So they are allegedly replacing the United Nations and French forces in Mali, and Wagner is becoming the new supporter of these military coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, and now Niger. All right? Now, that is a major development with Russian involvement, Wagner being Russian-backed, Putin-backed. And that's an example of the new world order that Putin is proposing. The new world order is let's overthrow and put in military coups and have them run with support from my private contractor militia, the Wagner Group, which is known for its brutality. If that's the new world order, that's what we know Putin is selling in Africa. So I think, we need to be aware and able to argue against Putin when he makes these absurd claims. Oh, let's replace the American democracy with a new form of multipolarism. Well, the multipolarism he's selling is skeletons and gulags and not anything that is attractive and free for Africans or anybody else in the world. That's something that we need to know and understand. And of course, he's trying to lock in Africa with trade deals. He's proposed an African continental free trade area. And that free trade area will be tied into the Eurasian Economic Union, which is something that he set up with some countries like the Stans. So he's looking to try to create an alternative economic zone where Russia, who's being sanctioned for its invasion of Ukraine, where Russia can operate. He wants an alternative economic zone. And that's part of his game plan in Africa, plus the fact that Africa has lots of natural resources that can be exploited by the Russians. So the last thing that his game plan is aiming at is creating a vote bank in the United Nations of what I call non-aligned countries in Africa. Keep in mind, you've already got some big players like Egypt and South Africa that are playing on Russia's side. General Sisi in Egypt is getting an atomic power plant built by the Russians in Egypt and probably financed 100% by the Russians. So he's getting a free power plant for being pro-Russian. And South Africa, Ramaphosa, has been involved in military training exercises with the Russians and the Chinese.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Okay. So today's world seems to me to be a band of thieves. And of course, I, as a member of the proletariat, think that this is uncommon and this is something new. What concerns me is maybe has crap like this just been going on forever? My image growing up was I could trust the FBI, that these were real gentlemen, and now ladies, and the CIA, I could trust them. And I'm just the shoeshine kid from Poughkeepsie, New York. And I say, by the way, by mentioning those, is that an acronym when I say FBI?
Acronyms, yeah.
So if somebody's listening from the FBI or the CIA, and they're alerted because I mentioned his name, as the shoeshine kid from Poughkeepsie, New York, there's still that little 9-year-old boy who sold lemonade and shine shoes. Can you connect with me and tell me, are there any good people left? What worries me is that that we've seen the government now weaponize the FBI. I mean, when you show up to somebody's house like that Roger, that creepy guy Roger, whatever his name is, he came to Vero Beach.
Roger Stone.
Yeah, I mean, I've been.
When you say creep, Stone comes right to mind.
And I don't understand why people don't get it. When I'm in the presence of certain people,
Yeah.
I guess they have a good the antenna.
Yeah.
And it's just like the guy looked at me and he wanted to talk to me. I just kept on moving. I wanted nothing to do with. I don't know why. He just seems, like a guy that has greasy hair, and you think, I don't think that guy's taken a shower in a month. That kind of guy.
Right.
I hate to say it, but there's something about that guy. That's one thing. I generally really like Donald Trump. What I don't get is, I remember when I interviewed Dick Morris. Remember Dick Morris? He handled the campaign for President Clinton. Okay.
I'm not that familiar with.
Dick Morris is a genius when it comes to. Anyway, I mean, I offered him some money because he was down and out after all went down. He said, "No, it's right. I got $3 million for handling the campaign." So he said, "It's okay, Rhett, but I don't know these things. I'm Mr. Naive," and he had just been caught with this is before the Monica Lewinsky thing. And he and I were sitting in his hotel room. I'm doing an interview in California. And I'm thinking, well, actually, I didn't think about it at the moment, but I thought about it flying back to Florida. I said, here's a guy who's the number one friend. He's not now, with Clinton, Bill Clinton. And he's been caught on an elevator sucking the toes of a prostitute. I mean, it was just real extreme sexual crap. If you see me in Vero Beach, this would be amazing, by the way. If you should see me in Vero Beach in a tennis outfit, or forget the tennis outfit. If you saw me walking down the street 2 or 3 times in a week, and I've got this cute little gal who's dressed in the tennis outfit, and I got this guy, he's dressed in his tennis outfit, and I'm hanging out, you're going to say, oh, Rhett must have taken up tennis. So there is an old saying, and it is birds of a feather flock together. So here I am. I'm a year ahead of the Monica Lewinsky thing. And I said, this is not a good sign that Bill Clinton is friends with this character who has just been caught with prostitutes, et cetera. And then, of course, a year later, the Monica Lewinsky thing comes on. Now, what was I talking about? I was going to connect.
Well, you were connecting it to Donald Trump, and I should mention that Donald Trump was a very good friend of the Clintons. Before Donald Trump became a Republican, Donald Trump was a Democrat. And Donald Trump actually invited the Clintons to his wedding. And Donald Trump spent lots of time with the Clintons, including Bill.
He gave Hillary millions of dollars.
Yeah, so there's...
Sometimes I wonder if this is all a foil or whatever the right word is, and that they're having him do this is to get everybody in a quandary for some greater purpose, their greater purpose or something.
Well,
I don't know. Well, I do know that Trump is a genius. So far, I mean, I just found out that of all the people that are in office right today, all the politicians have a history of having black slaves. Yeah. Black slaves in America. The only one that comes clean is the lineage of Donald Trump. They did not have anything to do with having slaves. What mystifies me is there's so much good about this guy.
Yeah, he was from Scotland and Ireland, right?
Yeah, there's so much brilliance about this guy.
Yeah,
economically, he's great for the country business-wise.
Right.
But over here, when he attacks General Colin Powell, who I had the pleasure of spending time with, who's to me a great man. Okay, he did flip-flop. Colin Powell did flip-flop when Obama ran for office.
Right.
He left the camp of the Bushes, but now even the Bushes left the camp. The Bushes supposedly voted for Biden. That's how much they disdain Trump.
Well,
but anyway.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering about, if you got Trump, he's hanging out with guys like that. Who's the guy we were mentioning, the creepy guy?
Roger Stone.
Yeah, I mean, that's a telltale sign to me that, I'm sorry, but you do judge a person by the company they keep.
You said that birds of a feather flock together. So he does have some pretty dubious connections. And, even Michael Cohen, that lawyer friend of his, he was not the most upstanding guy.
He's kind of creepy.
Yeah, he's kind of
I
creepy
wouldn't
too.
want
Yeah,
him. I wouldn't want him for my attorney.
small time mafioso type. That's
He didn't
that's the
seem.
problem.
He didn't seem the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Yeah, that's right. So, well. Anyway, before we get on, there's another topic that's very interesting to cover today, and we will do that after the break. But I want to throw in one remark about something else that's very interesting that happened this last couple of days, and that is drone attacks by the Ukrainians on buildings in Moscow. Now, if you've not been paying attention to the news, there's a high-rise. There are not a lot of high-rise buildings in Moscow. And a drone a couple of days ago flew into the side of this high-rise building. Think of it like the World Trade Towers in America. And it blew up and took out at least a floor or part of a floor of the high-rise building. Now, the Russians claimed that they had stopped other drones that were being launched, and 4 in total. They'd shot down 3, and this one had been jammed, and therefore it crashed into the building by accident. And it wasn't actually the drone attacking the building, it was accidentally it collided with the building. That's what Russia said 2 days ago. Well, today, a second Ukrainian drone flew into the same building. Now, start thinking about this. Does that mean that this is another drone that was jammed electronically and also by accident crashed into the same building? What's the probability of that, Rhett? The reality is the Russians were lying. The flying bombs, the drones were attacking that building. The Ukrainians were successful in their attacks. The Russians did not jam those. That's disinformation to try to, make their public feel more secure. That, we can jam these drones. In reality, they couldn't jam the drones. The same type of drone hit twice in 3 days, the same building. Now, Russia is claiming, by the way, that these drones are being flown all the way from Ukraine. Well, that entails a distance of several hundred miles to come all the way from Ukraine to Moscow. So the experts that I've been hearing have said that they don't think there's any way a Russian drone has that distance. It can't fly that distance. That's a long way, 200, 300 miles. So they are saying that these drones are being launched from probably 20 miles away from Moscow, meaning inside Russia, which totally changes the dynamics of what's going on over there. That means that either Ukraine has deeply penetrated in Russian territory with its offensive, or that there are sympathizers of the Ukraine cause inside Russia who are working to attack the Russian Central Command. This building, by the way, is only a few blocks away from what's called the Russian White House, which is the chief administrative building of Moscow. So you can imagine if there were drones blowing up in Washington, D.C. This is the equivalent. This is drones blowing up in New York or Washington, D.C. That's what's going on right now. And so I want to at least give Russia, accuse them of lying and deceiving about what is going on with those things. And the Ukrainians are possibly more effective than we really thought they were in use of drones. Russia is continuing to slaughter and kill with multiple drone attacks on Ukraine, killing civilians. So in a way, I find it totally justified that the Ukrainians are shooting back. Why sit there and be fired at over the years and never fire anything back? It doesn't make sense. So I'm supporting them in what they're doing. But it's an interesting little bit of info. Well, anyway, so we'll go to the next topic. Take a break.
Yeah, you want to talk about this Pakistan suicide thing?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting.
Bomber kills over 50. I guess he blew himself up, right?
Right. Yeah, he did.
Can you imagine strapping a bomb to yourself, and you really believe you're going to see Allah that day?
Yeah, this is a very complicated topic. Pakistan's always been a big hairball, let's put it that way, complicated, tangled mess.
You wait a second. You were a diplomat.
I was a diplomat to Pakistan. I follow Pakistan
Did you live there?
closely. Yeah.
Did you live there?
Yeah, I lived there.
How long?
Yeah,
How long?
A year and a half, roughly.
A year and a half.
Yeah.
Well, you get a pretty good pulse. This is one thing about traveling. You go to Rome for 3 days or the Amalfi Coast, and suddenly you think, oh, I could live here. Well, you better stick around a while. That's why I tell people when they come to town, don't buy real estate right away. You better get your pulse on where you want to be. Otherwise, in Florida, you might buy something. You're going to wake up, then you're going to be stuck with it for 20 years,
Yeah.
All right. So when we come back, let's talk about the Pakistan suicide bomb. We're talking with David Hunter, retired U.S. diplomat. I'm Red Palmer, mayor of the airwaves. Officially now in our 29th year. Is today August 1st?
August 1st.
Yep.
Okay, so today officially, we become 29 years on the air, over 40,000 interviews. Appreciation to the people who have put up with me interrupting people for over 29 years.
Yeah.
It's been my most, of course, appreciation is to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who, through a young prophet up in Schenectady, New York, years before it happened, said the Lord told him I was going to move to Florida from New York State and I would one day have a radio show. I totally forgot about it until it came to pass. And then 2 years into this, I went, oh, my word, that prophecy came to pass. How many people get their career choice picked by the Lord above? So I have some story. Well, he does say he's the father to the orphan, and I was orphaned when I was young. But listen, today's broadcast is brought to you by Center for Advanced Eye Care. These are eye doctors that genuinely care. And by the way, I've been on the air 29 years now. I don't endorse anybody I don't thoroughly believe in. I hope I don't.
Yeah.
I've had some question marks along the way. I had to fire a plumber and I had to fire a computer company. But other than that, if I find if there's a glitch in their armor and an Achilles heel, I will let them go. But anyway, Center for Advanced Eye Care, Dr. Mallon, and Dr. Schnell, Dr. Katz, and a whole group of very, very professional eye care doctors that are not businessmen first, but eye doctors first. That's the Center for Advanced Eye Care. I'm Red Palmer. We'll take a break. We'll be back in about 3 or 4 minutes.
Red Palmer.
The mayor of the airwaves is ready to go. Talking to people you want to know.
Face to face.
One-on-one. Get the story and have some fun
With Red Palmer.
And now, the most trusted name in radio, Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves.
Okay. Somebody unexpected came to the door. Hi, I'm Rhett. And David Hunter, of course, is my guest. As he is most weeks, he's a retired U.S. diplomat living in Vero Beach, Florida. It's a cool 82 degrees right now. So that's pretty nice. Where he is, it's about, let's see. Hey, Siri, what's the temperature in Stowe, Vermont?
It's currently 58 degrees.
It's 58 degrees here, so I think we have you beat.
Yeah,
I don't have to put...
You have to wear a sweater, and I'm out here with my shorts on. 82 is pretty nice. It's a good temperature. For the
really
middle
is.
of August or first day of August, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's unusually cool for Florida because usually August and September are the two hottest months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's been hot all over the world. That's for sure. Some of you've seen these fires going on in Greece and Italy. The heat waves in Rome. People are the tourists are just not even coming. They're talking about moving to changing their trip plans to Northern Europe, up to Norway and Sweden.
Yeah, well, the problem is that you have an 84% chance if you get heat stroke. People need to listen to this. It's a matter of life and death.
Yeah.
84% chance if you get heat stroke that you will die. Only a 16% chance you will survive. And that's because your kidneys shut down. So no dogs in the car, no kids in the car, no you in the car with the car off. Keep the windows down, air conditioning on at all.
Right.
Don't go out and mow your grass during the day at this point, because I had a friend right there in Vero. He went out, he was blowing the leaves or whatever, came back then, laid down on his floor, my friend's wife told me, and he proceeded to die. And this is, I know, well, anyway, so what'd you say, Barbara? She says, get a new story.
Get a new story. All right, well, let's go to the next. You got another question here for.
Yeah, let me get to that on my thing here. Pakistan suicide bomber kills over 50 in a gathering in Pakistan Islamist Party, JUIF in Khyber, whatever it is. Anyway, let's see. District near Afghanistan border. A suicide bomber killed over 50 people and wounded yeah, Noah's typing to me right now saying, "Yeah, new story would be nice." He says, "Barbara, smart lady."
Okay, well,
let's get her on the air here. I don't care. It's time for me to retire anyway.
Yeah. Well, this suicide bomber is of course a terrible situation. It was taking place at a political rally. Now that's an interesting point. This group JUIF is aligned with the ruling party, which is called the Pakistan Muslim League, which is headed at the moment by Shahbaz Sharif, who is the brother of Nawaz Sharif. Nawaz Sharif was accused of corruption and fled to England, and he's living in England right now. And Shahbaz Sharif, the brother, took over from him. Actually, he took over the party from Nawaz Sharif, but he became the prime minister of Pakistan in April of last year. And that was because this guy, Imran Khan, who was he's the cricketer, as they used to call him, and had an English wife. Imran Khan was accused of various acts of corruption and betrayal and so forth. It almost, I want to draw a quick line here. There's been a lot of charges made against Donald Trump now that he's out of office. Well, Imran Khan has over 150 cases that have been brought against him since he was removed in a vote of no confidence last year. And Imran Khan's his claim is that the vote of confidence was actually organized by the United States government. He's claiming that this was a secret coup by the U.S. and some people in the Pakistan military that overthrew him. That's his claim. He was overthrown and removed from office. And he claims that there is a document. He actually waived the document at one point. The document is called the cipher. And he claims that this document, which was sent from the ambassador of Pakistan in the United States back to the Foreign Ministry of Pakistan, proves that Donald Liu, the Assistant Secretary of State, had told the ambassador that Imran Khan must be removed from power by a vote of no confidence. And therefore, the decision to remove Imran Khan was a organized campaign by the United States to remove Imran Khan. That's what Khan is claiming. Now, Khan is of course, very anti-American because of that. Khan is pro-Russian, pro-Chinese, and anti-American. And he has been charged. He was arrested for graft charges in May of this year, 2023. Mm-hmm. And they had a riot when he was arrested. Now, this has some similarities, too, because, you've been saying there could be riots if Trump was arrested or if Trump was tried to be incarcerated, put in jail.
Yeah.
The fact is that Khan, after he was arrested on graft charges in May 9th of this year, there was a massive riot. The Khan supporters attacked the general headquarters of the military in Rawalpindi. They're claiming that the military was behind this coup. So they're attacking the military, and they attacked the Lahore. That's a sub-division of the military in Lahore. Over 10,000 people were arrested, and the current Prime Minister, Shahbaz Sharif, he said that he's 100% sure that this conspiracy of May 9th was aimed at overthrowing the army chief and initiating a civil war. That's what the current president of Prime Minister of Pakistan said. And therefore, they have now conducted trials of some of the people that have been engaged in that riot or uprising. And they are being tried in military court or in terrorism courts, not in the normal civil court. They don't go through normal civil court. They have special terrorism courts and military courts, and that's where these people are being tried. So it's a real mess in Pakistan. That's what I'm trying to explain. And the government of Pakistan right now is trying to suppress Imran Khan and his supporters. There's even talk about outlawing his party. Now, that's something novel. I was looking into it. The United States has never outlawed a party, a political party, except for the Communist Party. In 1954, we passed a congressional act to make the Communist Party an outlawed party, a banned party. But otherwise, we've not done that. So anyway, the Pakistanis might consider outlawing the party that Imran Khan has created. It's really his party. It's not like our Democratic and Republican parties that have been around for hundreds of years. These are parties that are created around a person. And if that person is corrupt, then the party may not be legitimate politically. That's an interesting question. I'm not going to go into that. We'd have to bring in a political expert to talk about, what's the validity of outlawing a party for criminality. But anyway, as far as the bombing goes, the bombing was done in a group that was related to the current government in power. The current government in power. You changed your outfit, Rhett. It's called the Dark Vader look.
I did that for Noah.
All right. Anyway, the bombing is allegedly right now. The government of Pakistan is saying that this was done by ISIS. There's a group in Pakistan called ISIS-K, and so that group is being alleged by the government as the one behind this bombing of essentially a group that was pro the ruling party of Pakistan. But it's also possible that this was done by what's called the TTP, which is the Pakistan Taliban Party. And the Pakistan Taliban Party has been engaged in acts of violence literally for the last year. In April, they exploded a counterterrorism facility in Pakistan and killed at least 12 people at a counterterrorism facility. That was in the same location, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, that you mentioned that this bombing took place. In January, there was a suicide bomber inside a mosque. We've heard about that, which killed 80 officers. That was also up in Peshawar, which is also near the Afghan border, Peshawar. And that was done by the TTP. And then there was a February attack by the TTP in suicide bomb in a police compound in Karachi. Now, most of the attacks that TTP has done have been against the police or military. And the TTP is aligned. This is something the United Nations Security Council did a investigative report that was just published in June, I think, and it said that the TTP is tied closely to Al Qaeda and to the Taliban. So this is a very intriguing point that you may have TTP working with the Taliban in Afghanistan and with Al Qaeda to try to overthrow the Pakistan government and create an Islamic caliphate in Pakistan. Now, Pakistan is a country of 200 million people, and it has nuclear weapons. Now, can you imagine if you had a Afghan radical Islam Taliban type caliphate with 200 million people and nuclear weapons? So, this what's going on in Pakistan today, which is a total turbulent situation, could very easily evolve quickly into something of international significance. That's why I bring this up. So the bombing is bad. I mean, it's a nasty bombing to kill 50 people in a political rally, but that's not unusual for Pakistan. It happens a lot. Attacking police stations and powerful people, arresting the former prime minister. The former prime minister actually accused the government of trying to assassinate him. Imran Khan has publicly accused the government of trying to assassinate Imran Khan. So it's a mess over there. That's all I can say. And I don't really have a solution right now to that area. Their economic situation, they just got a $3 billion IMF loan. Otherwise, they were bankrupt. China,
What is IMF?
International Monetary Fund, the International Monetary Fund.
I remember a number of years ago, probably 14, 15 years ago, somebody was in my studio who had worked with the CIA, and they said they dropped off $3 million every month in this guy's back porch in Pakistan.
That was Afghanistan. Afghanistan. No, that was.
Oh, I thought it was.
No, we talked about that before, and that's not surprising. When we were engaged in the Afghan war, we were looking for Afghan warlords who would back the United States. And there were a number of warlords that were pro-U.S. and were being funded that millions of dollars or something like that in order to buy weapons so they could use them to fight against the Taliban, as it was. Ironically, the Taliban won the war. All of our money and our warlords didn't do the job. The Taliban won.
If you got $3 million a month, that comes up to $36 million a year, and you don't know. I mean, all of a sudden, my name is Schmoochie and you drop that off my backyard. I go, hey, honey, why don't we go buy a place in France? We've hit the jackpot. I mean, is the CIA going to say, hi, Mr. Shmoo, aka Rhett Palmer, if you don't spend this money in the right way, we're going to eliminate you from the face of the earth? I mean,
well,
look what's happening now. We just found out that company, that trucking company, got $700 million from the government during this pandemic. They're going out of business. Lemon, I think it's called Lemon.
Yeah. Okay. Let's stick to the case in Afghanistan. The use of funds, in theory, was so that warlord could pay his troops. Basically, that's the concept. He was paying his troops, and he was buying arms, and then he was using those troops and arms to fight on our side to assist us in our goals in Afghanistan. So that was the logic behind it.
How do you trust these people? I mean, they're going to skim $300,000 a month off of that, or $3 million a year?
Yes, and worse than that, of course, is the fact that some of these people that we were probably paying were also secretly working for the Pakistan government and for the Taliban, and therefore they were basically working for both sides. That's the other problem. It's a very complicated world out there. especially in places where we're trying to run insurgencies or help counter them. That's why I mentioned this thing in Africa. France is not going back into Niger. That is very clear, in my view. Macron, he was off in the Pacific at Vanuatu, talking about forming a new coalition in the Pacific, and essentially he has wiped his hands clean of Africa and said these people. There are, by the way, we talked about Mali. There are 120,000 Malians living in France. Okay, 120,000. So anyway, your persona is changing on us as we go through the airways today. You look like Hemingway in that model. I'd say this could be a Hemingway contest down in the Keys. Rhett, is that what you're aiming for?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm old enough to do it now because I'm 69 and he died at 61, committed suicide at 61.
Yeah. Well, definitely you're old enough then. Yeah. No, that definitely could put you into the running for the Hemingway contest in the Keys next year.
Well, I thought of an excellent idea. I think it'd be a great idea too.
Yeah.
A good time to rob a bank because you could go into the bank and you rob it and you go outside into the street where they literally have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men that look like Hemingway.
Right.
The police arrive at the bank and they say, "What did he look like? He looked like Hemingway." You know? Wouldn't that make a great movie?
That would be a good movie. Yeah, that would be a good movie. Well, anyway, I'm a little concerned. Barbara may want to have you counseled on this. This is about the second or third program that you've talked about robbing a bank. So I think you might want to consider the conditions inside jail cells in Florida before you think further on that, because they are not very nice. Let's put it that way.
I hope that I would never even attempt it. I don't think I'm smart enough. The thieves that I've met who actually get away with stuff, even though, of course, I'm interviewing them in prison, but they, for the most part, got away with stuff, are usually very brilliant people. And I've actually had conversations with them. I said, listen, if I was as smart as you could, why don't you get in legitimate business? There's more money. And this guy turned to me and said, but it's fun what I do. Do you know, I'm reading a book right now. You know Finkel, Mike Finkel?
No.
He has a new book. It's number 7 on the New York Times bestseller. Well, he just came out with a new book and it's on an art thief. I've interviewed him on another book he had. And he actually lives in France now. He used to be a writer for the New York Times. He's out on his own. But this guy robbed $2 billion in art and never sold a solitary piece. He put it all on the walls of his house, his living room, his dining room, his bathroom, his upstairs attic, just so he could enjoy it. He never, in all these years, well, he ended up going to jail eventually, and, you keep thinking he can get away with it. And but now he's out of jail, and Finkel interviewed him and did a whole research on this guy. It's a pretty marvelous. Well, I've just started reading it, but
right, it's love of art is one thing, but having ethics and you can go to the museum and look at the art in the museum, and then you don't have to go to jail. So that's what I would recommend. And I do encourage people who collect art to donate their collection to museums when they pass. That would be a nice thing to do, so that we could have more of the public that have access to these beautiful.
Oh, that reminds me, Noah. Are you listening, Noah? Somebody wants to buy one of my Bob Dylan paintings in the back room. So if somebody comes in while you're doing the shows today.
All right. I'll be staying around to collect the money.
I only got $600 for
yeah,
it. That's not a lot of money.
That'll cover today's show.
Yeah.
No, that's congratulations, Brett. That's good. Let me move on to another topic. Since last week we talked about this this terrible rioting in the northeast of India, Remember that?
Yeah.
And that was Christians and Muslims. And I mentioned this problem of the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, having a Hindu nationalism as part of his agenda. And what's happened just in the last day is that there's been another huge riot. This is not between Hindus and Christians like the one we talked about last week in Manipur. This one is between Hindus and Muslims. Now, I mentioned in the show when I was talking about Manipur how my wife had been caught in a riot between Hindus and Muslims in Andhra Pradesh when we were serving there. She was out shopping and there was a riot, a religious riot between Muslims and Hindus. And these things do happen occasionally, but there was one in Haryana state that just recently took place, I think in the last day or two. And the reason for the riot, from what I've heard, I haven't had a chance to look into it deeply, was that there was a far-right Hindu group. Think of it like neo-Nazis wearing, Nazi helmets and carrying a swastika flag. That's the equivalent. A far-right Hindu group marching through a Muslim neighborhood. Okay? And the group was then blocked by the Muslims. They said, no, you can't come through our neighborhood. We're not going to let you march through with all your anti-Semitic propaganda. In this case, all your anti-Muslim propaganda. So then the riot took place, and there was apparently, bloodshed, and lots of people were injured, and I don't know how many were killed. And it spread from there to some neighboring states. So the issue is Hindu nationalism is a very aggressive, in-your-face kind of attitude that says if you don't like India as a Hindu state, then get out of India. Well, as I mentioned before, there are 200 million Muslims living in India today. 200 million. Think how many that is. That's almost...
What's the total population of India?
It's about 1.2 billion. So you've got 1 billion Hindus and 200 million Muslims in a country of 1.2 billion. All right? So it's roughly, 15% of the population of all of India is Muslim. So if you start having ethnic rioting between Muslims and Hindus, that could get into a terrible situation, just terrible. And that's why I think we Americans need to advise the government, especially Mr. Modi, to slow down, take it easy, be tolerant of others in others' religions, including Christians up there in Manipur, including Hindus in Andhra Pradesh, Muslims in Andhra Pradesh. So India is like America. India is a multicultural state. This goes back to the concept in America, these people that say, America was founded by white Christians, and therefore this is a white Christian country. Well, it isn't. I hate to inform you, but it is not a white Christian country. America has evolved over several centuries from what it was. When it was first established, it was a white Christian country built on the backs of dead Indians. And we replaced them, basically. We replaced them. So the concept of America today is we are a multicultural country. I find it rather curious. You've got people like this Ramaswamy, who's running for president under the Republican ticket, right? Ramaswamy was at this conference in Iowa the other day, and he was talking about how, back in 1776, we wouldn't have done that this way. Ramaswamy's parents arrived here as poor immigrants in the 1950s, and he was born in America. He was not around in 1776. His parents were not even dreaming of America in 1776. They were living in India. So, you know, and his position, this is something, because I know there's people that like Ramaswamy, and I want to just, you know, give some insights on my perspective. My perspective is that Ramaswamy, in his speech, he said he wanted to get rid of the FBI. He wanted to get rid of the CIA. He wanted to get rid of the IRS. He wanted to get rid of the Department of Education. Probably he wanted to get rid of the Department of Defense. I have no idea. But the point is, this guy, whose parents just came to this country because it's a beacon of freedom and opportunity, wants to totally turn the tables and disrupt the way this country is run and operates and has operated for centuries successfully. I don't agree with that. I think that you know, if you're going to come into the country as an immigrant, I'm not against that, and I'm not against you getting into politics as an immigrant. Nikki Haley is an immigrant family. I think Nikki Haley is a solid, you know, she served as UN ambassador. She's got credentials. You've got over in England, the Prime Minister of England today, Rishi Sunak. He came in from India, born of Indian heritage, bright guy. He's not trying to turn upside down the British system of government. He's inside the government, playing by the rules, trying to make it run better. So that's a different approach. I'm all for people trying to make the government run better. Your mute is on, Rit.
Nikki would make a great first president of the United States.
I think Nikki would make a very interesting candidate. She's a balanced person. She's not off on...
But what I don't understand is, and maybe you don't either, because I'm one of these, they call me a Trumpster. But I have to tell you something. The moment she spoke out against Trump, you don't speak out against Trump. It isn't going to happen. The former vice president is not going to win. The governor of Florida is not going to win. The people, we the people, want Trump. I'm sorry. That's it.
Well,
and anybody, they don't. It amazes me that they don't. When you're so in the middle of it, you can't see the forest for the trees, as they say. The candidate is Trump. That's it. Beginning, end. And these people using, weaponizing the United States government against Trump. It's just totally evil. It's third world nation crap. It's banana republic crap.
Well, you know, I'll go back to this analogy of Imran Khan in Pakistan. We talked about him earlier. Imran Khan was voted out of office. He's claiming that it was a conspiracy that threw him out of office. I don't know that that is true, but that would be similar to the election fraud claims about Biden. You know, that maybe that, you know, Imran Khan should remain the president of Pakistan, and he was unfairly removed by a conspiracy with the United States. He's waving around documents saying, see, this proves that I was ousted because the U.S. government was conspiring to overthrow me. And now he's facing 150 different lawsuits. Imran Khan is 150 cases against him. And
How about the guy in Africa?
Which guy?
They just had the coup against the guy in Africa.
Well, there have been lots of coups in Africa. It's hard to keep track.
Well, the big one going down the past couple of days.
Niger. The Niger coup is the one we just talked about on the show. And the Niger coup was where the chief of the presidential security overthrew the president of Niger.
But I think he's going to be coming back. But that's another show for another day. Look, we're out of time for today.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, David Hunter, for coming on, retired U.S. diplomat. Always have some interesting stuff to tell us. If you've missed any of the show, you can, this thing will loop around at the Alexa, just say, Alexa, open Vero's voice for the next 24 hours. You can certainly go to our podcast, Rhett Palmer Podcast. And there's a host of other platforms where you can find us. Please do. I'm Rhett Palmer. Thank you, David Hunter.
Yeah, thank you, Rhett. It was a nice... Enjoyed the program. Yeah.
And we have an attorney from Tallahassee calling in about tort reform.
All right.
And we talked about tort reform. So keep it right here, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks. Okay.